Alrighty, we are back, of course, talking that FF7 The Drill. You know it. Back with some more Hamaguchi interviews. Just kidding. It's not actually what we're talking about. I actually have something pretty cool, some impromptu news here. Another novel coming out. Post FF7 Rebirth from Kazushika Nojima. Very similar to Traces of Two Past. And it is called Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Dear Destiny.
Like capital D? Destiny?
And the auto-translate description of this is a little bit interesting. It says, after the church's guardian angel takes flight and departs, the reunion in the Sector 7 slums begins to turn the gears of fate. Novel Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Dear Destiny, release date set for January 30th, 2026. Author Kazushika Nojima. The synopsis is a little bit confusing to me because it talks about the church's guardian angel taking flight and departing, which sounds like it's talking about Aerith because she's the main person who takes care of the church. And obviously she dies at the end of Rebirth. This book is based on Rebirth, obviously, or at least has Rebirth in the title. But then talks about the reunion in Sector 7, which is obviously referencing Cloud and Tifa. So I was a little bit confused on who this is talking about. Also on the cover of this book is the Buster Sword, which is a little bit interesting when you look at the synopsis that we just read. And I say that because it talks about the church's guardian dying, right? Before the reunion in Sector 7. So that makes me think either Angeal or Zack, which Zack makes more sense. But there is also the Angeal copy in Crisis Core that is protecting the church and Aerith and does eventually die in the story. So the name Angeal is very similar to the word angel, very obviously, and they sound very similar in Japanese as well. And Angeal has a white wing, which is very much more angelic than, of course, like Genesis and Sephiroth with their wings. Also at the end of Crisis Core, you had Angeal pulling Zack up into the sky, right? So in that regard, Zack is kind of an angel as well. I have no idea if any of the shit I'm talking about even matters at all, but I'm trying to find like a meaning to the synopsis, and as of right now, nobody's really talking about it that I at least see. Like, Genki's kind of covered this book, and so is Audrey, but they haven't really covered what like this synopsis is trying to say. I'm trying to figure out who the fuck it's referencing. Obviously, the second part, the reunion in Sector 7 slums, is talking about Cloud and Tifa, but what's the first line talking about? You know, with the product page for the book, that it is set in the past. It's another prequel book, before the events of FF7, you know, following like Tifa and Aerith again. Which is a little bit interesting. But given that it's a prequel book, it isn't referencing Aerith as the guardian of the church. So then it's got to be either Angeal or Zack, and I think Zack makes the most sense. At least in terms of the character that they had put emphasis on, but he was never really a guardian of the church. I mean, he hung out with Aerith at the church, but in Crisis Core, we don't ever see him like protecting the church necessarily, right? So the Angeal copy makes more sense, but it seems weird that they put emphasis on Angeal as a character who's not really been anything with the remake games at all, at least thus far, other than like the white feather at the beginning of Rebirth that falls down that could maybe be a reference to Angeal. We've never even heard the name Angeal at all so far, right? So I don't know, but they put emphasis on the word angel with the synopsis, which sounds like it'd be Angeal, so I don't know. You guys tell me, I'm going fucking crazy here. I mean, we know that Crisis Core is canon to the events of FF7 Remake and Rebirth, right? So in that regard, Angeal is a part of the story, but you know, we've never heard anybody say the word Angeal in like Remake or Rebirth, right? This is another auto-translate on the product page, but it does give us a bit more info. It says, after the church's guardian angel flies away, a reunion in the 7th Avenue slums begins to turn the wheels of fate. A sequel to Final Fantasy VII Remake, Traces of Two Past, a great prelude to the two heroines' encounter and journey. A story before the main story begins for the two heroines, Aerith and Tifa, plus Cloud's time as a Shinra soldier. So that's how we know it's a prequel book, and I guess specifically a sequel to Traces of Two Past. Maybe a bit controversial. Did we need another prequel book? Like, it's cool to get backstory on some of these characters, but like, me personally, unless there's like some crazy revelations in this book somehow, in the prequel book, right? Kind of would have liked a book that's like maybe bridging the gap between Rebirth and like part 3 or something. Like, or not to throw any shade at like Tifa and Aerith because I know they're very popular characters, but like maybe backstory on some other characters or something or whatever, right? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just not sure what could be in this book that's like super necessary, because like there was some cool shit in Traces of Two Past. I know people talked about it. We've talked about some of the stuff from it here and there. Certainly we haven't covered like all the shit in the book. There was some interesting stuff. Like, I know we talked about Elmira's husband Clay quite a bit on the channel about like his death, but like him not accepting death and then like traveling from like all the way across the planet all the way back to Elmira's house, and Aerith seeing him, and then he just kind of like lays down and dies, and kind of explains a little bit about how like death can work in this world, right? Like, that's an interesting thing. And I believe there's like characters that are in the book that appeared in Rebirth and like Nibelheim and stuff like that. And I think they also talk about Tifa's cat in the book. I don't know if that was the first time her cat was ever talked about. I think maybe her cat was in like Before Crisis or some shit. But I think it's in Traces of Two Past. And obviously there's a side quest in Rebirth where we like go and find her cat, right? There's like some stray cats in the mountains or whatever it was right outside Nibelheim, and it ends up being Tifa's childhood cat. So there will definitely be stuff in this upcoming book, Dear Destiny, that'll probably be in part 3, right? Or at least some characters or some moments that are referenced in the book will come up in dialogue or something like that in part 3. It'll be relevant in that way, but it's not trying to be a downer because it's definitely exciting to get another book, right? Even though I'm not really a reader, I do collect the books. I do have the 3 books so far, right? The Kids Are Alright, On the Way to Smile, and a hardback copy of Tracy 2 Past. I definitely do like collecting the books, even though I'm not much of a reader. I wasn't reading books much as a kid because I was playing fucking video games. I was playing Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy 8, 9, 10, right? That's what I was doing with my childhood. But of course, I do like getting backstory on some of the characters, and we're getting more backstory on Cloud, specifically his time with like the Shinra military, which you got a little bit of that in Crisis Core, of course, but there's a lot that we didn't. We don't know like the whole journey there, right? Other than little anecdotes that we've got throughout like FF7 and Remake Rebirth, stuff like that, of Cloud talking about it, and who knows how much of what he's saying is actually true, right? So like we maybe get the true story of like his journey in the Shinra military, right? But speaking of that too, Tracy 2 Past actually did give us a little bit of interesting detail on Cloud's backstory, specifically with his dad, right? We didn't get like a name or anything like that. That's still like a mystery, but it was something like his dad like went up into like Mount Nebel and like was just kind of gone, disappeared, right? I think they found like his supplies somewhere, but there's never a body found, right? So like there's still that kind of mystery in the air. So maybe this sequel novel can give us more on Cloud's dad, which is like this ongoing mystery for almost 30 goddamn years now, right? So like maybe we get something interesting involving Cloud's father with this book. Something else we can derive from this potentially is that we got a book so far after both games, right? One after Remake, one after Rebirth. More than likely we'd get another book after part 3. I don't know if it'd be a prequel or a sequel at that point. I'm not entirely sure. Also, looking at the product page on the Square Enix store, it doesn't have a page count, which I find to be a bit interesting because they do normally have that for a lot of the books that they sell. It's also only going to be 1760 yen, which translates to like $11.50 roughly, which is very, very cheap. That's like less than half of what Traces of 2 Past cost. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. I don't know if it's going to be like a smaller book than Traces of 2 Past, which was a pretty big book. It's like 370 something pages, right? So this could still be a pretty big book, just maybe smaller than Traces of 2 Past. Or it could also be like, maybe the Japanese price is kind of cheap and when they translate it to English, the price goes up or something. I don't know. Maybe it's like a digital copy price or something like that. It just seemed like the price is very cheap to me. As for an English copy of this, I don't know exactly because Traces 2 Past came out in like July 2021 and we didn't get an English version until like March of 2023. So it took almost 2 goddamn years, right? We'll be playing part 3 by the time we get an English version of this book, potentially. Anyways, new book from the boy Kazushika Nojima, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Dear Destiny.
Like capital D?
All I hope from this is that there's some interesting lore. Some whatever the backstory might be for these characters, it's relevant to what happens in part 3. That seems relatively obvious, but I'm just hoping like there's a purpose to the book beyond just, buy FF7 thing. By the way, that's the video. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Social networks in the description below. Follow me on Twitter, @DaveYT. That's it. Bye.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Logain or leave it like Cobain.